Welcome to our National Academy of Construction, Ask Me Anything. My name is Keith Molenaar. I'm an NAC member and a professor at the University of Colorado. The National Academy of Construction was established to recognize our industry leaders. An important purpose of the Academy is to provide a network of linkage between our past and present within the construction industry. To help with this, we've established our NAC AMA to help transfer knowledge to our next generation of construction leaders. So thank you all of us with us today for joining in. The format's simple. Our speakers will make a short presentation about their career and their perspective on the industry. If you've not already, please email your questions to NACAMA, no hyphen, just NACAMA at colorado.edu. And from these questions, one participant will win a $500 scholarship, and we'll announce that at the end of the event. And that scholarship sponsored by the National Academy of Construction. So today I'm very excited to introduce our speaker. Milo Riverso is President and CEO of STV Group, Incorporated. He earned his bachelor's degree in civil engineering from Manhattan College and a master's and PhD from Purdue University. As I introduce him, you can take a look at some of the incredible projects he's been involved with here. He's a registered professional engineer in 6 states. As president and CEO, he's responsible for overseeing daily operations and overall management of STV's corporate, technical, financial, and administrative activities. He's previously held a number of executive positions, including president and CEO of the New York School Construction Authority. Milo chairs the New York Building Congress. He's chair emeritus of the New York chapter of the ACE Mentor Program and the Regional Alliance. He's also an executive committee member of the national board of ACE. And if you're not involved with ACE, it's an incredible program. I encourage you to explore it. He's also chair emeritus and fellow of the Construction Management Association of America. He's a member of the American Society of Civil Engineers, the National Professional Engineers, and the Urban Land Institute. He recently received the Manhattan College De La Salle Medal and is a member of the Board of Trustees of Manhattan College. He is a vice chair and executive committee member of the National Academy of Construction, who's presenting this today, and he's also been honored by the New York Landmarks Conservancy and received the New York Congress George A. Fox Public Service Award. It's quite an illustrious career that you've had, Milo, and we're just very excited for you to join us today. So I'll turn it over to you to reflect a little bit and tell us about your career and your thoughts on the industry.
You know, I've always, and thank you, Keith, for that introduction, a generous introduction. I've always enjoyed this industry. I've liked it from when I was a child. At the age of 7, my grandfather and my father was an engineer and a general contractor. They started introducing me to the trades and working. And back then they didn't call it child labor and they didn't call it minimum wage and things of that nature. But I was the second youngest of 7 kids. And my father looked at me and said, "I'm going to raise you differently. You're going to work for your allowance." And I worked for my father for the elementary school and high school, and he rotated me through all sorts of trades as an apprentice. And I became a journeyman in 2 of the trades, in carpentry and masonry. And I graduated high school 2 years early and went into college, Manhattan, got a civil engineering degree in 4 years. Used to lay bricks during the summer. And then I went to Purdue University and got my master's at 21 and my doctorate at 23 in civil engineering. And the specialty was construction engineering and management. After that, I came out and I worked as a general contractor and construction manager for the first 13 years of my career on all different types of projects in the New York metropolitan area. I then became a public owner of a large construction entity in New York that built elementary schools. When I started, I spent 5 years there as a public owner, and I started as a vice president, quickly got promoted to president and CEO. And we would put in place, we started about $200 million a year my first year there, and by my last year we were up to $3 billion a year, supervising design and construction of elementary schools in New York City. And I left there, I came back to the construction industry, worked for a couple of firms for 3 years, and landed at STV, which I came in their construction group to start them a construction program and really grow it, and eventually became president and CEO of STV, and we're a large national design firm. So I've seen this industry from every different aspect, from being a general contractor, doing subcontractor tradesman work, being a construction manager or program manager, being an owner, a public owner, and supervising a design firm. And a lot of people will ask me, well, if you had to do it all over again, which aspect of this industry would you come back as? And I can honestly say it doesn't matter. This is a phenomenal industry. Every project's different. Every project has different challenges. Every project has different people on it, different firms, a different contractor, different architect, a different structural designer, mechanical, electrical, plumber, different tradesmen, different suppliers. And you're always learning something new. And I always describe that my perfect career would always be, I'd always be learning. If I could stay in school and make the money I'm making, I would have stayed in school. But this industry is the next best thing. You're constantly learning, meeting new people, and solving new issues and new challenges. So, and I've been on some very exciting projects. And it's not the size of them. I oversaw the design and construction of Freedom Tower, or One World Trade Center. But I also did a zoo in Brooklyn, or a residential building over the FDR Drive in Manhattan. So, in the Cornell Club in Midtown. It doesn't matter the size of the project, all different complexities. So I love the industry. I jump out of bed every morning to go to work.
Great. Yeah, thank you for the great overview. I'm going to just jump right in with some questions, Milo, and there's a number of questions relating to your company and the structure, and more so, I would say, the culture of your company. So let me hit a few of those. Well, one is a little bit more personal, but can you talk about the work ethic it takes to reach the top of a company like STV Group?
I think it takes tremendous work ethic. It's the one thing that was instilled to me by my grandfather and my father, was the work ethic. And they both had different work ethic. They both worked long hours, but my grandfather was a tradesman and third grade education, and he always believed 90% was good enough and you had to go fast and get it done. And nothing he ever built ever fell down or didn't work. And I used to work with him in the field all the time. My father was the engineer and the office type, and when I worked with him, everything had to be perfect. So my grandfather might hang a door with me in an hour and a half, and my father would take all day to hang the door. Both doors would work for 100 years. One door, you could put a level and square on every aspect of that door, and it would be perfect. And with Grandpa's door, you know, it might be off by a 5 or 10%, but it swung the same and got the same performance. And they both had tremendous work ethic, and work ethic means everything in this business.
Excellent, great. That was a question from Lucas. David has a question, very insightful here. What unique steps does STV take to ensure the reputations of all the stakeholders are upheld, so that you're thinking about all of the many stakeholders that you work with on a project?
We have to go through extraordinary lengths to find a collaborative solution to any issues that come up. One of the most challenging projects was the redesign or the design of the World Trade Center hub downtown at the World Trade Center. And there were tons of different stakeholders that had very diverse and varying visions for what downtown should look like after the World Trade Center. And we worked very hard, our people worked very hard on that project to build collaboration and find common solutions. So we go through extraordinary lengths, and you become a diplomat of sorts.
Yeah, good. This one's from Ryan, asking about the practices that STV Group uses during construction to negate or minimize negative environmental impacts, such as air or water pollution.
Well, there's tremendous regulatory efforts during construction. And we, a lot of our company does work in New York City. And in New York City, there's tremendous regulatory supervision of the environmental effects. We have noise pollution controls. Our equipment that our subcontractors use on projects have to meet decibel levels and muffler levels. There are hours of work that you're not allowed to exceed to disturb neighborhoods and neighboring adjacent buildings. Where we used to do construction on Saturdays and Sundays and work all night, that has become a thing of the past, and it's really subject to scrutiny. Other environmental impacts, that when the World Trade Center is being construction, we were actually monitoring the carbon monoxide and dioxide output of the equipment that was being operated on the project. So not only the noise, but the equipment. But right now, the regulation has become so stringent that we comply with the regulations.
Great, thank you. Do you, just out of my curiosity, do you see mitigation of environmental impacts written into any selection processes from owners? Absolutely.
It is one of the things that owners are looking for, public owners and private owners. The more elite private owner, maybe not the developer necessarily, although certain high-end developers have tremendous respect for the environment. And but public owners across the board are really taking into account the sustainability and the protection of the environment.
Excellent, thank you. I'm going to switch to just a little bit more broad questions now. Shivani asks a good question that I don't know that we always teach program management in colleges, what it is versus project management. So Shivani's asking, what is program management for construction, and how can young students shape their career path in order to pursue that further?
Well, program management, there are different items that could be called program management. One thing our industry is it has a lot of different names for different services. But I think true program management is overseeing the design and the construction and the commissioning of a project for a client. You're an advocate for the client. You help in the selection process and setting up the program. And the program could be a single project like, One World Trade Center, or the program could be, 100 schools or 100 public housing projects, and overseeing the design and construction and execution of capital improvement projects or greenfield development. And I don't know of the program that necessarily in the colleges that teach it. I can't refer you to one right off the bat, but it's something that you learn in the industry and through the extracurricular activities like the program, the Project Management Institute and Construction Management Association and different groups like that.
Great. Then Zachary's asking a question more towards the project manager and a little bit of a motivational here. So what's the best way as a project manager to motivate team members that might not be working to their full potential?
You have to remind them of the goal. You have to remind them that the client satisfaction is the ultimate new business generator. Your next project will only be one if the client walks away from that project wanting to use you and your firm on the next project. you have to talk about the contribution to the neighborhood, to the environment, the purpose of the building and what it's going to be used for, and how getting that job done with quality, safely, on schedule, and on budget is of primary importance. And you always appeal to the higher good and the higher purpose of the project.
Excellent. Yeah, referring to those goals, project goals and the owner goals is always motivating. That's excellent. So you talked a little bit about construction as a business here. Benjamin's asking a little bit of a business question here. What do you see as the largest current threat to engineering companies staying in business? And then even broader than that, how do you believe that government or society could minimize this threat?
You know, there are a couple of threats to our industry. One is the number of engineers. Right now, the industry needs a tremendous amount of engineers, and we're not graduating them as fast as the industry needs them. There's always a lot of conversation about the curriculum of the engineers. You know, some of us believe you have to teach the basics, and we can teach the technology in our firms. There are some firms that would prefer the engineers come out with the technology, and it's a trade-off, because if you start teaching additional courses, then you have to trade off other courses. So I see the threat to our industry as having enough engineers coming out. And then there's the commitment to quality. There has to be tremendous commitment to quality in design and construction of the projects. And we can't allow our owners and the public to lose confidence in our commitment to quality. And that's what generates the funding. That's what generates the commitment to new projects, the public funding to replace infrastructure. If people don't have confidence in our industry's commitment to quality, then they look at the dollar of investment for an infrastructure project as a dollar of cost rather than a dollar of investment. And when you don't want the public perceiving investment in infrastructure to be a cost, because then you're subject to cost cutting.
That's excellent. Yeah. Could you talk a little bit? I know you're working on LaGuardia Airport, and that's a big investment. How do you view the payback for the public on that project?
I think LaGuardia was visited by the vice president of our country and called a third world airport in the United States. And it was one of the most rundown. It's my favorite airport because I get in and out very quickly and it's close to home. But it was one of the most rundown airports you ever wanted to go through. And the governor took that challenge from the vice president, and he put through a program to rebuild the airport. And essentially, the United States will build the first new airport it has in 50 years out at LaGuardia, and they're doing it while operating at 100% capacity. That airport is oversubscribed, and the work that's going on there is tremendous. There is close to $150 million a month being placed on that airport.
Yeah, that's amazing. Just the incredible amount of work, and having flown through there to, have it operational and safe the whole time, as well as just an incredibly complex project, and something to really be proud of. You talked a little bit about education in your previous answer. Abigail is asking a question. How do you feel that your BS in civil engineering prepared you for the workforce?
I think it served me very, very well. Manhattan College has a very pragmatic civil engineering program. I've never designed a beam after leaving school. But boy, it taught me the terminology. It taught me what was important in designing. It taught me how to think. So I find that BS in engineering to be very, very valuable to me. There are a lot of courses that I learned and picked up in the construction management program in my master's and doctorate have also served me well. So a good mix of technical courses and the business and soft courses has served me well over my career. And in my construction management program at Purdue, 30 or 50% of my courses were in the Krannert School of Business. So I had a tremendous number of business, accounting, finance, business law, labor law, all different types of business courses in my background also.
Excellent, excellent. Another somewhat related question is from Anson. Anson is asking, how would I utilize my experience in pre-construction specifically to pitch myself to other structural engineering firms, either in internships or for permanent employment?
Structural engineering firms, you know, I think your pre-construction work gives you the ability to look at constructability of the drawings, bidability of the drawings, the completeness of the drawings, things that are important to contractors. And the more a designer can be toe and step with the construction of the project, the more they're going to satisfy that client. If they design something that can't be built or has holes in it and the result in change orders and delays later, they're going to have an unsatisfied client. So the pre-construction input in a designer's office can be very, very helpful.
Do you see, just out of curiosity, I've seen, especially in our region and some other places across the country, large contractors employing more structural engineers, either for design build pursuits or actually doing construction engineering throughout the construction process. Do you see that as an opportunity for Anson as well?
Absolutely. The design build is growing as a vehicle, a delivery vehicle in the United States. And in the as it grows, construction firms are hiring engineers to help manage the outside engineering firm, to help talk to it, relate to it, and bring the construction input into it. Our best design build projects happen when the contractor is working in the office side by side with our people and putting that input in a daily basis, rather than waiting for a 30% set or, you know, a design development set to be issued and then marking it all up and causing redesign. We'd like for the contractor to be in the office working with our designers and coming up with the most efficient design that gets the job for the client at a good price and makes money for the contractor.
Yeah, that's an exciting place to be. I know we just used to talk about co-location in design build, but now we talk about big rooms and really collaborative teams. It's really changed in our industry, and I think it's trending that way as well. Let me come back. So a related question here, but from a mechanical engineer. So Sarah is asking, as someone majoring in mechanical engineering, what advice would you give me to help break into the construction management industry?
I would try to pick up some of the construction management courses that might be given at the university where you're getting your mechanical engineering degree. You know, one of the best courses I took in my graduate work was design of mechanical and electrical systems and plumbing systems in buildings. Again, not because I plan on sitting down and designing some HVAC systems or air movement and things like that, but the amount of terminology I learned has served me well on my projects when I'm sitting in design meetings, giving pre-construction advice, when I'm solving issues on the job, RFIs, clarifications, and installation of systems. So I don't think there's a limit to what type of engineering can enter into construction. We regularly hire mechanical, electrical engineers in construction, and sometimes it's a requirement of our clients. For instance, the New York City Housing Authority has a huge boiler program, replacement program going on, and they require a mechanical engineer with PE to be on the staff of our program management staff to oversee the replacement of the boilers in the public housing projects.
Great. Just to expand on that a little bit too, how does STV support continuing education? Many times your education is not just complete when you graduate with your degree. How does your company support, and do you have any suggestions for thinking about continuing education throughout your career?
Well, we support continuing education. We support continuing education for our licenses, whether they're registered architects or registered professional engineers or certified construction managers or land planners. But we also support going on for graduate school. And we pay as a contribution that's commensurate with your grade. So I think if you get an A on it, we give you 100%. If you get a B, you might get 70%. If you get a C, you might get 50 or 40%. We don't participate in D's and F's. But we do encourage our staff. And we're an employee-owned company, so we really do invest in our staff. In addition to that, we have an STV University within our firm. And we run lunch and learns, and we have schools with different disciplines. And we bring in outside vendors that might give a lecture on fire stopping or on the proper masonry detailing or roofing systems and how to inspect roofing systems and things of that nature. So we're big advocates. And we have leadership and management training courses. And we send the employees out to outside leadership and management training. So we're a big proponent of continuing education.
Good. Well, I didn't want to disappoint any of our university students, but yeah, it does you keep continuing to learn throughout your career. So.
Yep.
Your response led me to another question here from Thaddeus. It's about the structure of your company. Being employee-owned, how does the structure of your company differ from one that's funded in a more conventional way, for example, being a publicly held or supported by investors?
So there are different levels of employee ownership. STV is 100% employee-owned. And the way that works is at the end of the year, the board will sit down and decide how much they want to fund the stock for the employees. So in our average year, we would fund an employee stock account with 6.5% or 6% of their salary up to the statutory maximum. And that money would go into the employee's account to buy more stock. We retained our structure from when we were on the public stock exchange, and we bought ourselves off of it. But we had 3 outside board of directors and 3 inside board of directors, 3 of management. Beyond that, I run the company with an operating committee. We meet once a month. We review the financials, and we review initiatives. We meet weekly on project pursuits for new work. But generally, the structure is pretty typical of how the firm ran when it was owned by the public sector, owned by the public stock exchange.
Okay, good. I'm going to switch a little bit here. A lot of folks are looking for some advice on how to be successful or what you might look for in an engineer. So let me find one here. Well, I'm going to ask you to reflect a little bit yourself then. Tyler's asking, what do you think has been the key to your overall success? Obviously, good work ethic is important, but what do you think helped you stand out from other hardworking, intelligent engineers?
You know, my father once said, never be scared to ask a question in a meeting. If you don't know something, ask the question. And I found over my career, and he went further to say, because if you don't ask that question when you're 25 and you're fresh out of school, and the chances are you'd then be sitting around 55 in the meeting wondering the same question. And you'd feel a lot sillier asking it at 55 than you would at 25. And I found over my career that you got to stop meetings, you have to ask questions, you got to constantly learn and be open-minded. And when you ask a question, you'll see like all of a sudden 10 or 15 heads in the room start bobbing. And people had the same question they were scared to ask. I've always, I think my success in this business has been tied to my work ethic, my respect for people who work for me, people above me, my client, my peer firms, my firms that we partner with, and the willingness to keep learning and pretend and not pretend that you know it all. When you pretend you know it all, you usually get into trouble.
Excellent. Yeah, asking good questions is certainly a key to success. I'm really glad that you hit that. Michael's asking, I'm not sure if he's looking for a job with STV or just in general, but what are some common qualities you look for when hiring a person?
You know, I look for, I ask questions like, do you play sports in school? Because team sports are a big indicator that you know how to work in a team and team concept, and everything we do is done in teams in the real world. So I like a demonstration that you've had that. But if you didn't play a team sport, that doesn't mean it's a career ender. I look for work ethic, for initiative, participation in extracurricular associations. I'm a big advocate that you know, you participate in the student chapter of some of our industry organizations, and when you come out of school, you continue to participate in those. I look at that as free leadership training. I don't just like paying member dues for you to belong to the CMAA. I want you to participate on the subcommittees. I want you to become a leader of that subcommittee. I want you to move from the leader of that subcommittee onto the board. I want you to come and become the head of that board and the leader of that board. And then I want you to move to national and be a participant on the national board and eventually leader of that national board. And I just don't look for paying membership dues to populate a resume. In fact, we make it the activity to be one of the requirements of our reimbursement of association dues.
That's really great. I haven't heard that type of reflection before. A lot of times I think students just believe it's a club that you're in while you're in the university, but you've really had a lot of experience in different associations. What have you learned from the different associations that's helped you to be successful?
Oh, I think in the associations, there's technical knowledge to be learned. There's business knowledge to be learned, depending on the association. I think the networking is tremendous. I think you raise your stature of yourself and your firm in the industry by participating and leading, and with the owners. A lot of times you meet the public owners and private owners in these association meetings. The networking is tremendous. You find employees at these meetings. All around, it's a plus plus. But it's like everything else. You only can take out of it as much as you put into it. The more you put into it, the more you'll take away from it. So that's why it requires that participation.
Great, thank you. Maybe to continue along this theme before we switch to some other more industry-related topics here, we'll stick with the personal ones. If you were to give any piece of advice to an engineering student getting ready to graduate and looking for a job, what would it be?
Well, I think right now you have your pick of the litter. There's such a tremendous need in the industry. I don't see anybody having a hard time finding a job. So now if it's a seller's market, you're the seller, you need to be smart on your interviews and make sure you're going with the right firm. And the right firm doesn't mean the one that offers you $5,000 more necessarily, because the $5,000 over the long run is nothing. I mean, it seems like a lot of money to you right now, but it really is nothing. It's chump money. What you want to interview the firm is to see how they're going to develop you. What kind of investment are they going to put into you? Are they going to have continuing education? Do they have training? Will they rotate you through different positions and different projects? Do they have career conversations with you? Do they have a university system within the firm? How committed are they to the development of you as a professional? And how will your reputation in the industry rise because of that? You really need to interview hard. Don't worry about the money. The money, they're going to all offer you the same amount of money within $5,000 or $10,000. And the minute you go to work, personnel recruiters are going to be calling you to go across the street for $5,000. Don't go. Figure out which firm you want to work for, and really, if you make the right choice and you do the right investigation, stick with that firm and learn everything there is to learn.
That's great advice. Thank you. And that last question was from Bryce. I guess Hanny has a question dealing a little bit earlier than permanent employment, and I think it relates to your last response, and it's dealing with internships. So what would the most important aspect be that you look for when hiring an intern? For example, do you look at their experience or wait for the interview to see the personality of that person?
With the internships, I look at the resume. I look at the programs they're coming out of. I look at their interests. I look at their past internships. And then I have a meeting with the student. But I have to tell you, it's very rare for me to turn down anybody applying for an internship. We probably had 150 interns this summer in our firm. It's hard for me to turn down opportunity because you should be interviewing the firm you're interning for, because we're interviewing you and observing you. And it's a great way for you to refine and validate what that you're truly interested in, the aspect of the industry that you're going after.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you. I think that internship relationship does help both ways. You get to see and be convinced that's the aspect or the place in the industry you want to work as a student, and also get good exposure with the company. So those of you who are contemplating, should you get an internship or should you not, definitely take the opportunity. As Milo has said, this is an excellent economy right now, and you should be able to find an internship, work with your faculty members and career development folks, but definitely take the advantage of the opportunity to get an internship. Mohammed's been asking a couple questions around starting up a business, and there's actually a few questions in here. It is a good economy. Could you give any advice to a young engineer or construction manager who'd like to jump right in and try and start up a business?
I recommend you go to work for someone else and learn at their expense. Unless you think you're going to be perfect, you're going to make mistakes, and they can be costly. And although I'm a great proponent of education, there's a lot of pragmatic knowledge to be gained out there. And I would think you'd want to expose yourself and see how the industry operates in real life, and then plan your opening of your company after that.
Great. Spencer and Gwyn have asked kind of a similar question. Just generally, what's your favorite part of the industry, or why do you enjoy your work so much? It's obvious that you do.
I'm a people person. I love working with people. I love meeting new people. I love challenges. I love solving challenges. That's the favorite part of the industry. I told you I'm working for a design firm as a CEO and president of a design firm. I've been the president and CEO of a construction firm. I've been the president and CEO of a public owner. These are all different aspects of the industry. I can't tell you I like one better than the other. I like them all. And I couldn't tell you which one I'd want to come back as tomorrow, but you constantly recreate yourself, reinvent yourself, challenge yourself to learn new things. With me, it's people. I love to work with people. And I love the meeting of the new people in this industry. We rotate every project, new people, new firms, and new challenges.
Yeah, that's an excellent response. I know sometimes it just feels like you're working on engineering problems throughout college, high school and college, but then it really is a people industry once you actually get out there. So excellent. Yep. Since kind of following along that theme too, it's not just about individual relationships, it's about managing teams. So Michael was asking, what's your approach to building and managing a team?
You have to demand that everybody has respect for each other on the team. You have to make sure there's nobody who sets up a caustic environment in the team. You want to see everybody pulling their own weight. Unfortunately, part of this business is you have to weed out problem people. You either have to weed them out and counsel them or get them coaches, or you have to weed them out and set them aside. But you cannot allow a dysfunctional member of the team to bring the performance of the team down. It would be demoralizing to everybody else. And, I've always heard my kids, when I was raising kids, come home and say they were assigned a team project and so-and-so isn't participating in the project. I want to go to the teacher or the professor and tell them that so-and-so isn't participating. And I said, the teacher's response is going to be, I don't care. It's your job to try to get the most out of that person as possible. And as the leader of that team, that's what you want to do.
Excellent answer. Thank you. Carson asked an interesting question. We both commented what a great market it is right now to get into. That's in a large part because a lot of our workforce is retiring as engineers as well. But Carson asks, what are some of the tactics that you've utilized within your company to tighten the constantly evolving gap of knowledge and processes between generations? So how do you get that generational knowledge, passing it down, or having our senior folks work with new technologies and such?
It's a great question, absolutely great, and a very big challenge to our industry. Some of our senior staff and experienced staff don't have a willingness to teach. They don't have the patience. They feel like they weren't taught when they entered the business, and they don't want to teach and hand it down. And it's tough. We try to set up as many situations as we can to help the handing down of knowledge. Knowledge management's a big issue. A lot of firms have tried a lot of different technological solutions. I don't know that any of them have been a cure-all for the issue. But we set up mentoring programs in the firm. We have our seniors lecture our juniors. We have reverse mentoring for the juniors to mentor the seniors. And, if you're an inquisitive senior and you want to learn the technology, you want to learn how this generation thinks, we have reverse mentoring. So, but everybody has to be open for it to be successful. If you have a closed mind, it's not going to be successful.
If you don't mind, I'm really intrigued. Have you ever partaken in the reverse mentoring? And that's a wonderful concept.
I've participated in many mentoring programs, and I have done reverse mentoring without calling it reverse mentoring. Sometimes I'm assigned a mentee. I will learn as much from that mentee as they may learn from me.
Yeah.
And they don't even know they're doing it.
If we could go off script just a little bit, could you talk about the ACE program so that everybody knows a little bit about that?
Sure. The ACE Mentor Program was started in 1994. It was actually the Dean of Engineering at Manhattan College who reached out to Charlie Thornton, who Thornton Tomasetti is a large structural firm, and Charlie is a Manhattan College graduate, and Dean Listingi called him and said, if I don't start getting some more high school kids into the engineering program, they're going to shut it down here at Manhattan. we got to figure out a way to excite kids on the engineering programs. And so at the time, there was a program in our industry called the Boy Scout Explorers Program, and it's still here. But Charlie modeled the ACE Mentor Program after the Boy Scouts. So he went into a high school, and he excited the kids about architecture, construction, and engineering, hence the name ACE and the acronym ACE. And he got them to volunteer to come to his office and every other week and spend a couple of hours after school, one day every other week, and he would mentor them on a project. And he had an owner. It was Chase Manhattan Bank. He had an architectural firm. He was the structural firm. He got mechanical, electrical, and plumbing firms to each give them a mentor, and a construction firm. And they worked through a project. So the owner picked a prototypical project. It could have been a real project or a fake project, and said, here's a piece of land. I need a dormitory. It's off campus, but I want it to be made to feel like it's on campus. And this group of mentors of the different disciplines would work with the 25 kids to solve the solution over 2 semesters. That was the birth of the ACE Mentor Program. That New York chapter of ACE, and I joined that board about 2 years after it was started, 96. That New York chapter of ACE is now grown to 1,800 students a semester, and 400 or 500 mentors from 500 different firms, and raising on the order of magnitude $300,000 a year in scholarships if those high school students go on to pursue college education in either architecture, construction, or engineering. And Charlie, after he retired from Thornton Thomas Edison, he moved to Baltimore. And like every good engineer, he got bored. So he went to the local high school and started one in Baltimore. And eventually he spread it out to 70 different cities throughout the country. So there's ACE affiliates all over the country. And again, the idea is to attract high school level students, to get them curious about it, and to have them pursue an education and eventually come back into the industry after they finish their college career.
Well, thank you for so much time that you've put into that. It's an incredibly important program, and I know it's inspired quite a few students to join our exciting industry. So, Milo, I hate to say this, but I'm going to have to give you the last question here because we're out of time. So I'm going to ask you this last question, and then also just ask if you'd like to just reflect on maybe 1 or 2 more pieces of advice for our listeners here. But our last question will come from Amos. And what do you consider to be the most rewarding part of being the CEO of STV Group?
2,500 employees. Their pension plan is the ownership of our stock, and knowing how successful we are, and that we've made over 100 millionaires since we became an ESOP, and that all these employees will go home taking away a sizable portion of their pension from the firm, to me has been very, very rewarding. We have employees, and this year, here's one of my proudest moments. We still recognize, old-fashioned, we recognize every time an employee finishes a 5-year period at STV. So we recognize it through a financial reward. And 5 years, you get so much, 10 years, 15 years, 20, 25. Well, this year we recognized 3 employees for completing 50 years at STV. They came out of high school, one of them, co-opted with the firm while they went to college, got a degree, and went into retirement without ever working for another firm besides STV. Another gentleman was a structural engineer at a Manhattan college 51 years ago, because he's now completed 51 years. And he came to work at STV after he graduated and will go into retirement, never working for another firm besides STV. And the ability to provide that type of environment for employees who want that type of environment is just phenomenal. I'm very proud of it. It's fantastic.
That is truly remarkable. Yeah. So Milo, if you have any final thoughts, we do have to wrap it up, but I'd just like to give you the chance to close it out.
So I always like to refer to one piece of advice that my grandfather gave me. I was in high school. I was complaining about how much homework the teacher assigned, and I went stomping up the steps to my room saying, homework, homework, homework. I'm sick of homework and tired of homework. And my grandfather came and said, what do you mean you're sick and tired of homework? He said, you're going to have a lot of homework in your life. Then he sat me down and said, you can't panic. You can't get stressed out. You have to break it down into pieces. You have to complete it and then assemble it all back up again. And, you know, I've come across some of the biggest projects in the country, and it's that same advice. Engineers take big problems. We break them down into small problems. We solve them, and then we put them all back together. And that's how an engineer is taught how to think. And that's how these big projects get executed. You break them down into small pieces, you solve each piece, and then you reassemble them all together.
That's wonderful advice. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. A lot to learn in that, both while you're in school and throughout your career. So thank you again. And I'd also like to thank everybody who's attended. These are some wonderful questions this time. Really had some excellent conversation. I'd also like to thank Jane Manalo, who runs this behind the scenes, and the National Academy of Construction for sponsoring this with all of its inductees and members for providing the scholarship as well, which I know that's what a lot of you are waiting for. So we'll close out. I will tell you who the scholarship winner is, and that's Bailey from the University of Kentucky. So Bailey, we will be in touch with you via the email that you registered and talk about how to get that scholarship from NAC to you. So congratulations. And again, thanks to everyone for attending. We'll have another one of these in October and hope to see you then. Thank you.
Thank you, Keith. Thank you, Jane.